Hey, this is Robert Ferguson. What's up, everybody? I am your nutritionist and I care. That's why we share. And today, I'm going to share with you some very important information that I believe everyone will benefit from. So let's cut the music and let's get right into it. Today, we are going to talk about, in a short period of time, fasting glucose. Okay, fasting glucose. Now, if you're 23 years old, you're probably going, well, what is that? And you're not even going to pay attention to what I'm talking about. If you have gone to the doctor and maybe they said your glucose levels are a little elevated, you're like, okay, well, maybe I want to listen to this. If you've been told that you're pre-diabetic, then you probably will want to listen to what I'm going to share. If you are a type 2 diabetic, I want you to listen. Sometimes people who are type 2 diabetic don't want to listen because they don't want to hear what they already know. They don't want to hear anything that's going to make their situation worse, because you get to this place where you want to just sweep it under the rug. You don't really want to deal with it. You just want to wait every 3 months to go and look at the doctor and hear what they have to say, and they'll give you a hard time. You just don't want to deal. If you're a professional athlete, you're going, yeah, that doesn't really pertain to me. Well, yes, it does. See, if I'm working with a professional boxer or a professional who's a wrestler, amateur wrestler, or a professional MMA fighter, and I'm coaching them, which I've done at the extreme highest levels, and the goal is to get them to a certain weight and be healthy, and then put them in a position where after they weigh in, they're going to rehydrate and be in a place where they can rock and roll. I want to know what their fasting glucose is, because if the fasting glucose starts to elevate, that's a sign of dehydration. Now, most people that I talk to have no idea about this. I mean, I talk to all kinds of nurses, physicians, trainers. They don't even know that. And this is, again, I've been doing this for a long time. And that's why when I do work with professional athletes, I get paid what I get paid, because I'm bringing in a significant amount of knowledge and understanding. I'm going to make life so much easier and put them in a position where they can win. And I have not mentored anyone on all the details of what I do. I am looking to have that person. One day I'll meet one of my coaches will become that person, and I will pour into them. I got to trust them, because I'm going to give them some secrets that they might not ever discover. Or if I'm working with one of my coaches and they actually have questions about, athletic performance, then I will share these things with the coaches that we have worked with and continue to work with. But we're going to talk about fasting glucose, because this is something that everyone needs to know. Everyone. You know how when you go to someone's home and they have a thermometer, and if someone has a fever, real quick, they go to the bathroom, they pull it out, and they can check and see if they have a fever? Almost every home has a thermometer. I believe that every home would benefit from having a glucose monitor, so that anyone can check their fasting glucose when they wake up in the morning. Okay, now before I dive in, let me just quickly say that our time together is brought to you by, let's bring it back, the Detox Drop. Now, the Detox Drop, you can learn about that. You can go to our store. You can get it. It's a great way to get started. It's something that can help you with stalls and weight loss. It's something that can help you with everything from improving your fasting glucose to lowering your blood pressure to bringing down your uric acid. It's all there. It's all explained. And so you can go there and learn more about that. Also, we have an 8-week fat loss challenge that you can learn more about. And if you're interested in becoming a client, whether you're being coached by me or one of our coaches, we have some really good discount deals available right now. Whenever we have people that drop out of our programs, maybe they're just not ready. Who knows what they're going through? But if you are ready and you want to improve your health and you want to take the bull by the horns, reach out to us. If we don't have a discounted program available, we'll let you know. You can either get started anyway, or we'll reach out to you when we have a discounted program available. Okay? So, let's talk about some fasting glucose. What do you guys know about fasting glucose? If anyone's catching me live, I would love to get your thoughts on why is it beneficial to know what your fasting glucose is. Yes, I'm talking about that thing when people prick themselves. Some people have continuous glucose monitors that they benefit from, which are great if you can have access to that. But when it comes to losing weight and just being healthy, why would one want to know what their fasting glucose is? The majority of clients I work with, I strongly encourage them to let me know what their fasting glucose is, whether it's from their lab work or they do it at home. And we monitor that. Now, if someone doesn't want to do it, that's fine. But there's a lot of benefits to knowing what your fasting glucose is. And it helps us be ahead of the curve so that you don't become a full-blown type 2 diabetic. And if you are a full-blown type 2 diabetic, we monitor it so that we can slowly bring it down. And you don't have to wait until you go see the doctor to know if you're making progress. Now, some people will go, well, my glucose is great. Okay. Well, if it's great, then we want to know that. So I want to check your fasting glucose the same as I would want to check your weight first thing in the morning. I would want to check your fasting glucose the same as I want you to measure your waist every week. Knowing your fasting glucose can be very, very, very helpful. Many times I'll have a client that will come in and I'll start working with this client. And in working with the client, I'll say, hey, I want you to do your fasting glucose. And they'll go, well, why would I do that? I said, well, it will be helpful if you did it. So then they do it because we have this thing called a carb threshold score. I can figure out what their score is. It helps me identify if they have a level of insulin resistance or not. And I can't tell you how many times I've had people check their fasting glucose and be surprised that they are full-blown type 2 diabetic or they're pre-diabetic and they had no idea, which goes with the statistics, right? So right now in America, you have over 30 million people who are type 2 diabetic, adults. You have over 90 million adults who are pre-diabetic, and 80% of those adults have no idea. So you have people walking around like a time bomb. And it's just a matter of day before they go from 0 to like full-blown type 2 diabetic. And once you're a type 2 diabetic, now you got to do the work. And depending on the severity of it, you may have to be injecting insulin. And if you're injecting insulin, losing weight is very difficult. Very difficult. So, yes, you want to know what your fasting glucose is. It's very important. You want to know your fasting glucose. Okay? Now, if you have any questions, bring it, but I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to share a little story with you, give you an example. So here's one of our coaches who's also someone who is a huge success story. I think the world of Betsy. So Betsy saw me post something on Facebook when I was just starting to take on a whole bunch of clients and put them into this program. She reached out, we got on the phone, I told her about the program, what I was doing, how the coaching works. And she was 175 pounds at the time. Her hemoglobin A1C was 14.5. Now, if you don't know what that means, then you won't realize that that's pretty high. The highest I've had in the last 3 years is 16.3. Now, her fasting glucose was 278. If it's 99 or lower, then that's no, you don't have any diabetes, no pre-diabetes. So her hemoglobin A1C confirms she's type 2 diabetic. Her fasting glucose is 278, and sometimes it was hitting 300. But Betsy was a champ because she was like, Robert, I don't want to be on any of this medication. And she was talking about the diabetic medication, which was metformin. She was also taking a statin, and she also was taking blood pressure medication. Well, fast forward, that's no longer the case. That's no longer the case. She took the bull by the horns, did something about it. I was privileged to be her coach and coached her through it. And now she's actually a coach. And she's helping other people. How amazing that is. She's doing it. That's called paying it forward. Once you know how something can work, I mean, look at all the people who don't know about the Diet Free Life methodology. Or some people right now are hearing it for the first time. They have no idea. They're living with type 2 diabetes and they think the only way they can reverse it is to give up all the foods they love. And all of our clients are eating foods that they enjoy. So it's not about pain, it's about education. It's about being informed, and it's about doing something about it. There are many people who are okay with just dealing with the stress of seeing their doctor every 3 months or every 6 months and have that doctor tell them that they need to go on meds, or we got to up the meds, or what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. They just get comfortable. If you're the kind of person that don't want to be comfortable, reach out to me, because I'll actually find a space for someone. If someone's serious enough and they really want to improve their situation, then I will do whatever. Because if it's not being coached by me, I have some great coaches. I'll refer you to another coach. Nobody needs to be in a position to just have to live like this. So think about all the people you know who are type 2 diabetic. Think about all the people you know who are pre-diabetic. If you go to them and you talk to them and you say, hey, I know a program where you can reverse that and you don't have to give up the foods that you love. You can eat foods that you enjoy. How many of those people are going to say, give me a phone number, give me an email? Most people won't. And that's not a dig on those people. It's a part of the whole psychology that I have not quite understood. I mean, I've shared how I've been at parties. I've been around family members who are suffering. Their quality of life is not what it could be, but they would rather stay stuck than to do something about it. Whenever I share this, I think about this story that I heard from Les Brown, motivational speaker, author, amazing individual. Les Brown, and I'm going to paraphrase it, talks about this dog that's sitting on the porch. And every day he would walk past his house where the dog is on the porch, and he would hear the dog moan and groan. And one day he saw the owner, and he was like, man, I got to go talk to the owner. I got to tell him that that dog is in some pain. So he goes over to the owner and he says, hey, I don't know if you know this, but every day I walk past your house and I see your poor dog just moaning and groaning. And the guy who owns the dog says, yeah, I hear it all day, all night. Well, what's going on? The guy asks, like, why is that? And the owner says, well, because he's lying down on a nail. And the guy goes, what do you mean he's like laying on a nail? He goes, yeah. And the nail's poking into him and is really painful. Well, don't you want to like get him off the nail? He goes, I've tried. But the dog continues to go back to the nail. Because when I heard that story, you see that with a lot of people. They would just rather lay on the nail because they can deal with the pain. They can deal with the discomfort, and they actually feel comfort just to stay there instead of being open to something different that can actually change their life, add to their life, help progress their life. It's one of those things where there are some people who have really given it their best shot. They've hired dietitians, nutritionists. They've enrolled in programs, and their goal is to like get healthy. But the program doesn't work out for them. And so that person then takes on baggage, right? Because they got baggage now going, that didn't work. So they go through it for a while. Then they decide to do something else. It doesn't work out. Maybe they had to give up foods. They started craving certain things, and now they got more baggage. So you have people walking around with all these bags on their back. And they get to a point where it's like, they don't even want to try anymore. I'm just going to give up. And that's what happens. And they never, ever, ever find out or even come to know that things could have been different. My ex stepdad, not stepdad. So my mom married him. So he'd be my stepdad. So my mom's ex-husband years ago, who I knew, grew up. We stayed in touch. He stayed in touch with my mom. They got a divorce and all that. He ended up, becoming a type 2 diabetic. I talked to him about it. He saw what I was doing. He saw me on TV and saw me on programs and never really asked me about how I help people with nutrition. And he knows me well. Then his diabetes started to get a little bit worse. And I said, hey, you don't want to go on dialysis. And he goes, yeah, I'm not going on dialysis. Well, fast forward, he went on dialysis. Fast forward, he's only he was younger than my mom. So she was dating a younger man, right? But he was like 10 or 15, 16 years younger than my mom. Well, anyway, I think it's 66, maybe 67, still very young. Dialysis got the best of him. So when he was in his 50s, he went on dialysis and he lived longer than most people. And never did he ask me for a nutrition plan. Never did he ask me how I could help him with anything about nutrition. Not one time. And then what happens is you go to bed one night and you don't wake up. Or you fall into a coma in the middle of the day and you don't wake up. That's what happens. And that's what happened. So when it hits people, it hits people. And as we mature in life, the compound effect of all the things that maybe we didn't do as well as we were getting older start to show up. And so I'll give you one last example of a story. So one of my clients, I'm going to call her Mary because I don't want to embarrass her. But Mary had really good glucose numbers. Hemoglobin A1C was great. But all her other numbers weren't looking good. Now, I know that her insulin levels are elevated in the background. Now, you can't see it. Most doctors aren't testing for it. But I know based on the lab work and how we are able to do what we do. But her glucose is good. So every week she would go, oh, my glucose is good. So after a while, we didn't even have to check her glucose because her glucose was good. And then I would say, check your glucose every once in a while. So she checked her glucose and it was a little elevated. Nothing crazy, right? So if it's 99 or less, that means that's normal. That's homeostasis with your fasting glucose. One day, out of nowhere, right? She tested it and it's 136. Now, 136, that's in the range of being a full-blown type 2 diabetic. So she's like, hey, this is weird. I said, you know what? You never know. Stress could have caused it. There's a thing called the Don phenomenon. I go, check it tomorrow morning and then text me your numbers. She wakes up the next day, text 141. Then 145, 139, 153. I said, you need to go in and get checked. She goes in to get checked. She's full-blown type 2 diabetic. We caught it immediately. And also immediately, she went from under 100 to full-blown type 2 diabetic. How does that happen? Because she kept pushing the envelope. She kept eating and talking about, oh, I had a bad weekend. Oh, I didn't do this. Oh, I wasn't feeling good. Oh, no. Now she's got it. So there are no warning signs, you guys, where it says, hey, you got 4 more days to eat a little bit leaner. Oh, you got 3 more days. You better turn around before you get type 2. When you get it, you get it. And then you got to deal with it. So then the next week, she eats really lean. She's not eating ice cream. She cuts back on a whole bunch of stuff that she would eat in here and there. And then she's like, why isn't my numbers going down? They're still up. I said, because you can't fix it with one meal. You can't fix it with a week of meals. It's going to take 3 to 6 months to get you back to no longer being a type 2 diabetic. 3 to 6 months. And she started crying. And I get it. So I comfort her and I said, we're going to do this. And we're doing it. She doesn't want to be a type 2 diabetic because once you're a type 2 diabetic, if you don't get control there, eventually it shows up in other areas. And the last thing I would share with you guys is that as we look at your fasting glucose also, there's a connection with fatty liver. and also fatty lipids in the blood. Well, fatty liver, if you didn't know it, is becoming the number one cause for liver transplants. It used to be alcoholic fatty liver, then it was hepatitis C, and now non-alcoholic, meaning people who don't even drink alcohol, because of the way they eat, are now being faced with having to get a liver transplant. 1 in 4 adults have fatty liver. And most of them have no idea about it, because when you go to the doctor, they will check your liver enzymes. And if your liver enzymes look okay, then there's no need to check and see if you have fatty liver, right? Because a sign that you have fatty liver would be when your enzymes are elevated. Well, we've had many times, and I've shared this many times, where someone will have fatty liver and we find out, even though their liver enzymes are good, they go in for some other, maybe they're checking their gallbladder, or maybe thinking that they have some other problem, and they do an ultrasound and they go, whoa, did you know you have fatty liver? It's been there. So the doctors are not checking for fatty liver early. The same as they're not checking for insulin levels, right? They're looking at glucose where insulin is the problem. So I'm looking at everything. And I encourage all of our coaches to look at everything. We don't want to be indoctrinated to only look at what conventional wisdom has taught. We want to look at everything. So when you put your health as a priority, that's a good time to reach out to me if you want to coach. If you're going to play games with yourself, then I say, hey, keep playing games with yourself. If you want to take the ball and figure it out on your own, just listen to all the things that I'm sharing. You could do our 8-week challenge. You can learn how to make fat burning meals, get a glucose monitor, be checking it, because a lot of people don't even want to know. They do not. I'm telling you, I have clients that don't even want to look at it. They just want to do everything the best way they can and hope that it comes down. And next thing you know, it's going to be so far bad that it's almost impossible to turn it around. So, I didn't want to make this Fat Loss Tuesday a downer, but I'll just move. I was like, we got to talk about fasting glucose, because athletes, people who just want to lose weight, is really helpful if you understand fasting glucose and the connection between that and metabolic health, as well as just being able to thrive as an athlete. I've been saying for years that everyone would benefit from having a glucose monitor. Just have it. Same as you have a thermometer. And the more you understand it and the relationship between your fasting glucose and other areas, as I've talked about, whether it's being dehydrated, etc., then you'll see the value in it. All right. So I'm Robert Ferguson. Thank you for letting me share today. I hope you have a better understanding of glucose. If you have questions, you can always email us. Email my assistant, Lori, at dietfreelife.com. You can contact us at dietfreelife.com. And if you got questions, reach out. We will reach back. You don't have to be a client for us to give you answers. Our goal is to empower you and share with you so that you're more informed. And when you are informed, you're less likely to fall prey to those who are misinformed. The goal is to do no harm, right? And to put you in a position where you can win. That's living a diet-free life. And food is good. Food is good. All right, you guys, let's help some people. Encourage some people to step up. I know there's some people doing our 8-week fat loss challenge. That's great. You guys posted it. Invite people to get on board with you. Don't give up. Don't stop. Don't settle for like living in the body that you're in. You could improve it. You can improve it. Let's improve. Let's see what we can do to improve and connect with people who are striving for the same things. You got this. All right. Hey, Sandy, I want to give you a big shout out, and Linda, a big shout out. I'm glad you guys caught the live. And for those who catch the replay, hey, I always go back and look. So if you post questions inside of the comments, I will do my best to answer. And if it's not me, it'll be one of our coaches. Okay. So until the next one, I'm Robert Ferguson, a guy who shares because he cares. Until the next one.